Greetings from the National E-Learning Center in the city of Riyadh, capital of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I'm Zaid Al-Raqib. We are delighted to welcome each participant to today's webinar on AI competencies for learners, from understanding to empowerment. In this session, we will explore how artificial intelligence can be meaningfully integrated into education, not as a replacement for human judgment, but as a tool that enhances and empowers both teachers and learners. Our discussion will touch on human-centered AI with an emphasis on maintaining human control and recognizing its broader societal impact. We will consider how AI can enhance learner anatomy and decision-making by guiding the use of technology in ways that respond to individual educational needs. We will also look at the design of AI-powered learning experiences, from identifying authentic challenges to developing effective solutions. Throughout the session, we will highlight the importance of cultivating critical analysis and evaluation skills so that educators can assess AI tools and outputs for accuracy, bias, and reliability, ensuring their responsible and effective use in education. It is with great pleasure to have with us today the Assistant Professor at Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University, Dr. Rabia Al-Bu'anin, who will be moderating this discussion. We are also delighted to welcome the distinguished panelists, Dr. Stephen Coslin, President of Active Learning Sciences and a Professor Emeritus at Harvard University, Mr. Alex Beard, Senior Director at Teach for All, and Mr. Naif Al-Jahani, a King Abdullah University of Science and Technology Academy alumni. We thank these distinguished speakers for joining us today. So without further delay, we hand over the virtual floor to our moderator, Dr. Rabia Al-Bu'anin.
Thank you, Zaid. Let me share my screen first. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Rabia Al-Bu'anin. You can call me Dabia, Dr. Steven, and Dr. Alex. I'm delighted to be here with such a distinguished audience from students and teachers, and also our distinguished speakers for today. Today, we gather to explore a very important topic that is transforming education, which is learner competencies in the age of artificial intelligence. As we all know AI tools are becoming more common in a classroom, but the real question is, are our students ready? And this question is not just about ready to use these AI tools and applications, but ready to use these tools and applications wisely, ethically, and responsibly. I look forward to engaging with you, sharing insights, and also learning together through this discussion. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope the session will be both inspiring and insightful as well. As you know, the AI competencies for learners were developed by the National E-Learning Center in Saudi Arabia as part of the center efforts to ensure quality in the digital learning. And also, the National E-Learning Center tries to align with both national priorities, such as SADAIA, and also the international frameworks, such as the competencies developed by UNESCO, and also some global AI literacy initiatives. These competencies are designed to equip students with essential knowledge and the skills and also attitude needed to engage efficiently and responsibly as well with artificial intelligence. The purpose of these competencies is to prepare students for the future workforce shaped by AI, Enable them also to use AI tools and applications to improve learning outcomes and also accelerate the knowledge acquisition. Ensure that AI is used responsibly and ethically, and this is really the most important point in the age of AI. So by mastering these competencies, AI competencies, students will gain the ability to control their AI-driven learning journey, critically analyze also the AI output, and this is also the most important point. We will talk about it with Dr. Stephen later on. So here we have the AI competencies for students by National E-Learning Center. The competency level for students contain 5 key dimensions, as you can see here in this slide. Okay, and the purpose of these competencies is empower students to enhance their education through AI augmented learning while maintaining also control over their learning journey. We don't want AI to replace the students' thinking, and we don't want also AI to replace the role of teachers. We need both students and teachers and AI work all together and collaborate all together in the classroom. And also this collaboration is from the beginning, before the classroom, from designing the courses until the output itself. So the National E-Learning Center framework defines 5 dimensions, as we said before. These dimensions are the human-centered AI, and also AI ethics, AI literacy, AI learning design, and a critical analysis. Here we have 3 different levels of proficiency for students. We have 3 different levels, start from basic and then intermediate, after that advanced level. In the basic level here, in this level, it demonstrates the foundational knowledge and also understanding the AI concepts in general. And then students will go to the second level, which is intermediate. And here in this level, it demonstrates a working level of knowledge and also understanding of AI concepts. And the last one is the advanced level. And here it demonstrates specialized or advanced knowledge and understanding as well the AI concepts. In the first dimension, we have human-centered AI. And here we have 2 main competencies. The first one is human agency, and the second one is social responsibility. And what do we mean here? Human agency, that means students must always stay in control. AI here is assistant. AI here will not replace the role of students. AI will collaborate with the students, and the control will be always with students. And also the decision maker here is the students, not the AI. And here we have different levels, okay? And in each level, we have different level of competencies. And in social responsibility, that means students have know and understand also the AI approach to social responsibility. So they have to make sure it promotes equity and inclusions as well. So there is a critical need for frameworks that prioritize equity and inclusions. Today, AI is a solution for digital divide. AI now must be AI for all. We don't want to make another gap of using AI between students. So this social responsibility is an important competency for all students. So here we have to make sure that all students use AI fairly and responsibly as well. So the second competency, the second dimension of AI competency is the AI ethics. So ethics is really important in using AI in the field of education. And this is the most challenge of teachers when students use the AI in the classroom or doing some assignments or also in research. So in the learning process in general, AI ethics is the most challenge of using the AI. So AI ethics in education, that means ensure that AI technologies are designed, developed, and also used from students responsibly and ethically. So AI must support learners, must also students know the rights, following the ethical principles, prioritizing the data privacy. Students must know that the ethical principles of using AI in their institutions. They have to know also the right of data privacy. So learners or students in general, they have to know the fairness, they have to know inclusion, equal, they have to know the accountability principle, they have to know different principles of using AI. And also if these students use AI to, for example, develop AI models or as implementer, they have also to know the ethics principles when developing and implementing AI and education in general. So they have also to understand their rights. They have to know the privacy awareness in the AI learning environment in general. So here we have two competencies, the ethical principles in general. Okay, and here we have in Sadaya, in Saudi Arabia, Sadaya published the AI principles, which are 7 principles. Okay, this we have to follow it in implementing and using AI. And also there are a lot of publications in how to use and apply these principles in different fields, and one of them is in education. And also there are a lot of publications from different institutions such as National E-Learning Center and a lot of university efforts to guide students and also teachers and different employees in institutional how to use AI ethically and responsibly. And the second one is data privacy. And here students must know where his data, how to collect their data, how to save their data, how to share their data, how to publish also their data. And here in different level, we have different competencies as well. And in the third dimension, we have the AI literacy. AI literacy is a critical dimension, critical components for students. That means students have to know what is AI, how AI works. And when we say this, we don't mean that every student must become a programmer, or we don't mean that every teacher we must to be an AI expert. So AI literacy, that we know the basic level of AI for all students in different fields. So it's important to enable students how to use AI technology, how to understand the output of these technologies. So knowing that the foundation of AI will help students to later on to evaluate the AI output. Knowing also these AI concepts in general will help students to know if this tool is useful for them or the other tool is useful for them. So this is not something we will specialize in, but this is literacy that all students have to know about it. And here also we have different level of knowing the AI in general. Starts from understand the basic until create new AI applications. And also, it's not only the basic and background about the AI. There is another competency, which is data and algorithms. So here, students, they have to know the data structures, they have to know some algorithmic methods, they have to know how, for example, machine learning work, and how data will be trained, how data will be, for example, tested, how we collect this data, what is enough for this data? Is this data good for this model or not? So all this information will help students to understand how these systems or models of AI systems will make decisions. And this is the really important point, how this machine will make a decision. So knowing this question will help students, as we said before, to depends on this tools or not, to see if this tools is reliable or not. So let's go now to the other dimension, which is learning design. And Dr. Steven will talk more and more in this dimension, but we will also take a brief. The AI learning design, that means students use AI as a partner, okay, in solving some real-world problems. So it's important that students know AI is not a tool to do something. It's not only the tool, but AI is a problem solver, is a partner, is a collaborator of students in the classroom, and also when they study self-learning. Here we have also 3 competencies: the problem exploration. Students need to use AI to investigate problems, real-world challenges, real-world problems. And also the other competency is solution ideation. Students need to design AI-powered interventions. And the third one is the reflective improvement. Students need to refine solutions with feedback and also ethical reflection. Here we need the reflection from students. We need to do this all as a loop, start from students and also end by students. So we will not end by the machine in any time. So here we have also different levels of these competency. And the fourth one, this is the fifth one, is the critical analysis, and this is the last dimension. Here in critical analysis, learners need to choose AI tool wisely, know also how to evaluate the output critically. So we have 2 competencies to achieve this. Tool proficiency, how to use this tool. Is this tool is good for my use? Is this tool is valid? Is this tool is will give me the most correct answers or not? And also the output evaluation, how to evaluate the output, what's the step, what's the approach that the students know to evaluate output. So students have to know that AI systems, okay, have a lot of mistakes, have a lot of hallucinations, have a lot of incorrect information, or sometimes some information that don't exist as well. So how to critique the output is another competency students have to have it. So these 5 dimensions in the AI competencies for students. So now the question is how to maintain control in AI-assisted learning. So we have to help students and also to give students some awareness, some training, some practice, some activities to have the control over the AI tools. So first of all, we have to set clear learning objectives. Teachers should define what learning outcomes must achieve in this course, for example. Also, make sure that AI tools are used to support students, not to replace the students. So we have to make sure that using AI will meet the learning outcome of this course. Then also we have to let the students take more training. So human oversight and critical thinking will be by a training. So student must be trained to verify. Student must be critique the AI outputs. We have to ask students for more evaluation. We don't have to, for example, reject the work just because the students use AI. We have to work together with the students how to study using AI and how to work with AI together. And also we have to clarify when we use the AI tools. Some students use AI without any declaration, and this is really another challenge. When students when students used AI tools, they have to declare that they used AI tools, and they have to mention in where, which tool, which subject, which part, and what's the percentage of using AI, and also the reflection, the evaluation of using the AI. Students have to put their flavor. And also ethical guidelines, as we said before, is important to comply with. And the most important point is how to keep balance between AI and a human in all the learning process, and also how to refine the activities and create different activities to make this balance between a human and AI. So the last thing we have to know is that there is a lot of challenges. There are a lot of points need to be worried about using AI in education. So equity and accessibility. So as we said before, AI here today to close the gap of digital divide, not to increase this gap. So all students have AI or not, all students use AI or not, all students have access to this tool or not. This is the main question. And also we have to know that these tools have a bias, and also the fairness is really important. We don't want to exclude anyone. We don't want to exclude any students or any data. And the privacy and security of students' data is really important. All personal and academic data is really important. So how to make sure that this data is secured. Academic integrity as well is really important, and this is the one of biggest challenge. So how also to train students for workforce? Do we need to change a lot of things in our courses to be students ready for the future skills or not? Do we need to, for example, train students for new skills that these skills wasn't before as important a skill need to be trained on? And the last thing is the ethical citizenship. Okay, all students must have these ethical principles, and this is not only in the classroom, but also after graduation, and also beyond the classroom. Students should understand the AI rules and all part of their life. So that's for me. And also here you can find me on LinkedIn. Okay, I post a lot of things in AI in education, but in Arabic. There are a lot of things about assessments and about also developing some courses, policies, and AI governance in general and in education as well. So thank you so much. Thank you. And now we will go with Dr. Steven. So After this presentation about AI competencies framework, and now with my role as a moderator, I finished my presentation. So today's sessions, inshallah, will connect the AI competencies framework to a practical method known as the cognitive amplifier loop. This loop shows how generative AI can amplify human cognition, supporting our strength and overcoming our limits, enabling us to use AI efficiently and responsibly and ethically as well. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Stephen Kozlin as he will explore how these principles can transform teaching and learning in the age of AI. Dr. Stephen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to participate here. That was an excellent presentation we just heard, which nicely sets the stage for what I would like to talk about. So I'm going to talk about using the cognitive amplifier loop, which I will define. So first, it's useful to take a step back and realize there are really two kinds of frameworks here at work. One I call a macro framework, which we just heard an example of, which outline things like the development, deployment, management, and evaluation of AI, big picture stuff. This is all in the context of digital learning. So a good example has been developed in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We just heard it. In addition, you have micro frameworks, which operate within the context of a macro framework by specifying step by step how to interact with an AI in real time in virtually all situations. I think this is important in part because it helps direct us towards what we need to teach, to actually think about how you interact in real time with an AI and what sorts of skills, knowledge people are going to need and be able to do that effectively. So I'm going to first let me quickly remind you of the relevant parts of what we just heard of the macro framework. So this framework is developed by the National E-Learning Center in Saudi Arabia to guide effective AI use in education. It's very systematic, quite comprehensive, I thought. Balances opportunities, personalization, efficiency, engagement with responsibilities. So ethics, fairness, privacy, and bias. You just saw that. Provides clear, structured competencies for educators, learners, leaders, and policymakers. Aims to equip stakeholders with knowledge, skills, and ethical grounding for AI integration. So I'm going to focus on one part of this, which is the learning design framework, which has three parts. You just saw this: problem exploration, solution ideation, reflective improvement. So just to remind you, to put this in a bigger framework, bigger context, problem exploration was identify real-world challenges, for example, climate change, healthcare. Use multidisciplinary knowledge to define impactful opportunities, encourage deep analysis of where AI can be applied effectively. Take a step back and think about what you're doing. Solution ideation. Foster creativity in designing AI-powered solutions, brainstorm and prototype interventions that leverage AI tools, align ideas with specific learning needs and societal impact. And then finally, reflexive improvement. Integrate ethically informed feedback from peers, educators, and practice. Refine solutions through iterative cycles. So I'm going to focus a lot on that and what comes next. And build awareness of AI's limitations while also enhancing critical thinking. So everything I'm going to talk about from here on in really fits within this reflexive improvement part. So micro frameworks, I'm going to talk about step by step how to interact with an AI in real time. So I've devised something I call the cognitive amplifier loop. It's a framework, it's a micro framework. Generative AI can function as a cognitive amplifier. So usually you hear about it as a tool or a partner, co-intelligence, something like that. I think of it a little differently. I think of it as a way to build on our cognitive strengths and compensate for our cognitive limitations. So by definition, the hour in here is human. By definition, humans are in this loop. So it's not just AI by itself, it's not just having it as a tool, it's rather going to be integrated with what we're doing. Cognitive amplifier, builds on our strengths, compensates for our weaknesses. The cognitive amplifier loop helps us use a large language model, that's what I mean by AI, efficiently, effectively, and responsibly. I'll show you how. So here is the cognitive amplifier loop. I'm going to give you a concrete example of using it in just a second, but let's just walk through what it is. You start with a goal. So you have to formulate clearly what a reasonable goal is. So there are lots of techniques for this that can be taught, like how to use SMART goals, for example. And then from the goal, you devise a prompt. That's the input to the AI telling it what to do. Then it acts on the prompt and produces something. And that's the core here, is you evaluate what it produces. And one of three things happens. Most commonly for me is I end up revising the prompt. The first time through it wasn't exactly what I wanted, so I revise the prompt and I try again. And this may be several times through this little part of the loop here, until I get to the point where it's good enough and I refine or reuse it. But sometimes when I first evaluate it, it's so far off that I have to go and revise the goal and start over again. So let me show you a concrete example of all of this. So here's the example I'm going to use. Using a cognitive amplifier loop in teaching, it can be used in any application of AI. It's not limited to teaching, but the example I'm going to be using is about teaching. So what's the goal? Start with teach negotiation skills, let's say. They're very generally useful in human interactions. No matter what happens with AI, we humans are going to be interacting with other humans. So no matter what happens with AI, we're still going to be part of human society. And negotiation is a crucial skill to know about interacting with other people. So, all right, that's our goal. We're going to teach negotiation skills. A lot of known about them. What's the prompt? So in this case, the prompt I started with was simple. Please develop scenarios that require the user to use best practices to negotiate. Okay, I did this because I'm a big fan of active learning. I didn't want to lecture. I wanted to give some active learning examples because I know they're going to be effective. So I wanted it to develop scenarios that require the user to use best practices to negotiate. Present the scenario. Then you, that's the AI, you take one negotiating position and ask the user to respond. Wait for the response before continuing. Engage in 3 rounds of negotiation, then provide feedback to the user. This is it. This is all I did. So I put that in, what I get. So the scenario, it generated freelance work agreement. It said, you are a freelance graphic designer. That's me it's talking about now. A small business owner, Jordan, has contacted you to design a new logo and brand kit. You've reviewed the brief and you know that this kind of work typically takes you about 25 hours. You usually charge about $100 an hour, totaling $2,500. However, the client says their budget is only $1,500, citing tight startup funds. You value the relationship, want to maintain your standard rate, but are open to finding common ground. So setting the stage for negotiation. I'll, that is the AI, will play Jordan, the small business owner. Here's my opening offer. Thanks for considering the project. We really like your portfolio. Our budget is capped at $1,500, but we can promise a fast turnaround on payment and a credit on our website. Can we move forward at that rate? So please respond with your counteroffer or negotiation petition. So I said, I understand your constraints and appreciate them, but I know what it costs us and we can't lose money. So can we pare it back? Can we make what you want a little simpler to try to work within your budget? And we went back and forth 3 times. The end, after that, here's what it gave me. It gave me this table. So it gave me these 5 dimensions. I don't know where they came from. That's what it came up with. Clarity of position, flexibility, and willingness to compromise, and so on. And then it gave me evaluations of my performance. It's exemplary. You clearly stated your target rate and bottom line, reiterated it consistently. Proficient. So I don't even know what the scale is here. Exemplary, proficient. Is there good? Is there poor? It didn't give me the whole range. I don't know where it came up with the dimensions. I don't know exactly how it was basing these evaluations. So evaluation 1 I came up with, there was a problem. What was taught is somewhat arbitrary and not systematic. So that led me to revise the goal. So now the second goal, it's an iterative process, is I wanted it to summarize the key principles of negotiation. I wanted something systematic here. I wanted to know where this was coming from. So next prompt, please summarize the 12 most important principles that should guide effective negotiation. That's all I put into it, and it did it. So it gave me 12 empirically based. I didn't even ask it for that. So it gave me 12. I truncated at 8 here. There are 4 more. But look what it did. Preparation and planning, told me about a BADA, which is a very important thing, your best alternative negotiation agreement, and it gave me a reference, a link. All of these actually work. I was really impressed by this. So it gave me 12 principles that were empirically justified. So it's great, I can use that. So now I'm gonna go back to my original goal. I'm gonna revise it. I'm gonna now say, use the principles, these principles, to teach best practices in negotiation. Now another prompt. So using the learning objective, use best practice and negotiate effectively. That's what I'm still interested in that. And the attached list of principles. So I uploaded those. Please develop scenarios that require the user to negotiate. Present the scenario, then you take one negotiating position, the you being the AI, and ask the user to respond. Do not provide pointers for the user. Wait for the response before continuing. Engage in 3 rounds of negotiation, then provide feedback to the user based on the principles. So let's see what it came up with. So negotiation practice scenario. You are the manager of a growing marketing agency. You want to bring an experienced video editor to a high-profile ad campaign, have a budget cap of $12,000 for the project. Editor wants to hire, you want to hire, submits a proposal for $16,000. Round 1, my position, AI's position. I appreciate your interest in working together, and so forth. So it goes on, we negotiate on this. Here's what it came back on with. The feedback based on the 12 principles now, so it's systematic. Strengths you demonstrated well. Look what it's doing. Understanding interests, not just positions. That's one of those 12 principles. It gave me feedback, said you explored the trade-offs instead of sticking rigidly to your initial position. Invent options for mutual gain. Build rapport and communication. So it went through what I did well, but also look below, areas for improvement. Use objective criteria. So it gave me very reasonable feedback of things I didn't do well that were in those 12 principles. Very impressive. So I could refine and reuse this. So then I originally ended this presentation with slides that showed how to use the cognitive amplifier loop to draw on the science of learning, which is my specialty, to teach negotiation skills. There's a lot known about from the literatures on how learning and memory occur. So I was going to show you this, but it ended up being fairly redundant and a bit boring, actually. I actually developed it, and the AI did such a good job that it kind of felt like Coles to Newcastle a little bit. So I turned to the cognitive amplifier loop for help in improving this presentation. This is very meta. So it's a presentation about the cognitive amplifier loop. I'm now going to use the cognitive amplifier loop to help me improve the presentation. New goal. Find a way to end the presentation to show the broader implications of the cognitive amplifier loop. So it's not just about teaching negotiation or even just about teaching. It's really a very broad tool that it's worth looking at what you have to learn at each of the stages to be able to use it well. So I told it I said I need something that's both very general and very clearly important. So I came up with a new prompt. Attach, please find a draft presentation. I gave it the draft. I need to give in a few weeks. I'm not happy with the last part of it, where I focus on a specific principle from the science of learning. This talk is drawn from my book. It's called Learning to Flourish in the Age of AI. When I told it this, it knows about the book, by the way. AI has already got it. Published by Routledge. Can you please suggest something else I can do after introducing and illustrating with an example the cognitive amplifier loop idea? Thank you. So I know about the book. So I looked at it, and here's what it came up with. The AI result. It suggested a new section, the loop as a tool for critical thinking. So it says, after you finish the first successful negotiation example around slide 30, I've given it the deck, you can transition with a new header from application to implication, why the loop is essential for responsible AI loop. So this is coming to me from the AI. Here's a possible structure for this new section. Acknowledge the power and the peril. Start by stating that the loop clearly makes AI a powerful tool. However, as a cognitive amplifier, it can also amplify noise, bias, and error if used uncritically. This introduces a critical high-level problem. Use the loop on the problem itself. Demonstrate the power of your framework by applying it to this new, more abstract challenge, which is what's in that book, by the way. The book is all about that. New goal. My goal is to use AI responsibly. How can I use the cognitive amplifier loop to avoid the most common mental errors or biases when interacting with AI? So it's giving me a new goal. New prompt. Analyze the primary cognitive biases a person might fall prey to when using generative AI. For each bias, explain how a specific step in the cognitive amplifier loop, goal, prompt, evaluate, revise, serves as a corrective or safeguard. Isn't this cool? It came up with this itself. So I did as it suggested. I thought it was a great idea. So I put in that prompt, and here's what it came up with. It gave me a table of the main biases we have to worry about. That's on the left. And then for each step, each phase of the cognitive amplifier loop, goal, prompt, evaluate, revise, it gave me a way to safeguard against that particular bias. So for confirmation bias, okay, where you look for data that or evidence that's consistent with what you already think. At the goal phase, it says require multiple perspectives. Don't just think about what you already think other positions. Prompt, request counterarguments. Evaluate, ask what's missing. Revise, ask for contradictory viewpoints, and so forth. For each of these, it not only gave me the table, it gave me a whole page where it summarized the bias, and then it developed each of these ideas. So I thought this was terrific. I can refine or reuse it. So we can attach this table or the complete set of descriptions, which I would do for each of them, to any other prompt. So anything else we're doing with AI, we can attach this and include in that prompt the instruction to use these techniques to reduce the effects of bias and whatever else we're doing. So we can have the AI act as a cognitive amplifier, helping to compensate for our memory weaknesses. That it's really hard to memorize all this stuff and remember to use it. So now we have to memorize it, but we have to remember to remember. It's hard, it's hard. It's not good for us humans. So we can have the AI compensate for that as a cognitive amplifier. If we can put in all this information, all this guidance, and say, everything else we do, bring this into the mix and help us so we can reduce the effects of bias. This technique relieves the human memory load, amplifying our strengths, and we have plenty, and reducing the effects of our limitations. So the cognitive amplifier loops helps us use a large language model more efficiently, effectively, and responsibly. So this is all about using the cognitive amplifier loop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen, for this insightful presentation. I was really impressed. And when you present the cognitive amplifier loop, I'm planning to implement this method with my students in my course. So thank you so much. You highlighted the structured way to work with AI, and also show that prompt engineering is no longer optional. It's becoming the key skill for everyone who wants to use AI effectively in learning and in teaching as well. So defining clear goals and also prompt effectively, then evaluate also critically, then revising as well. The loop shows how AI can become a true partner. And what is really important in this method, how to reduce the effect of bias. So I think this is really important in teaching and learning in general, and how to use this method and apply it will help students in their learning process. So my question, Dr. Stephen, from your experience and from your also perspective, what are the best ways to teach students of different ages how to use AI, or how to apply this cognitive amplifier loop for different ages of students?
I think the key to using AI is using AI. I think there's really no substitute for just diving in and trying to use it, including in situations where you don't think at the beginning it's necessarily going to be very helpful. I think it's very important to get experience with AI to both understand what it's good for and what it's not so good for. And in particular, whenever there's sort of an open-ended situation where you don't know in advance what factors will necessarily be relevant, you don't know in advance, and in fact, new factors may come into being unanticipated, AI is not going to be all that helpful. It's constrained by what it was trained on. If it's something really, truly new, it's going to really draw on the broader context of what it is to be human in terms of how we want to have it come out for us. So those kinds of situations, I think it's worth bumping into them. And the only way you do that is by trying to use AI very, very broadly. And you should use it for something that's relevant to your own life, to what you're doing right now. And that may change at different ages. But other than that, I think the basic idea of just getting in there and getting your hands, I wouldn't say dirty, but used, is the main thing you should be doing.
Yeah, great. That I totally agree with you. So it's important to let them understand what is good for him and what's not good for him. So just for audience, please, you can post your questions to our distinguished speaker in the Q&A box, and we will take all these questions, inshallah, at the end of this webinar. So let me take another question, Dr. Stephen. What are the best ways to counter the negative effects of AI in education, such as, for example, its use in cheating?
I think the very first step is to take a really big step backwards and first try to figure out what the negative effects are likely to be and ask whether they really are negative effects. So cheating is something that everyone's been obsessing about. I remember when people used to worry about whether they should have an open book exam or not. So an exam where you're allowed to look at your notes, you're allowed to use a calculator, you're allowed to look at the book itself and all that, or you should have them just do it from memory. I always thought that was a little odd because the world, after they get out of school, the world is like an open book exam. No one's telling you you can't look at notes, you can't look at books and consult AIs and whatnot. So I think the very first question we should be asking is, what really are the goals here? I mean, going back to the cognitive amplifier loop, really what are we trying to achieve? And what are the problems, the negative consequences within that context? So for education, should we set it up in a way where it's even possible to cheat? I mean, there are ways to engineer project-based learning where everyone has to pull their weight and you really have to use what you've learned. If you haven't learned it, you can't do it. So I would take a step back, think about what the negative consequences as we initially think about them are, and whether they really are negative in a broader context. And if they are, think about that broader context and how we're going to be using AI and what we need to teach people so they can use AI effectively in that broader context.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Stephen. I totally agree with you. Same worries and in different ages, and we need different techniques, and the goal is the most important point. Thank you again, Dr. Stephen, for this rich presentation and this brilliant method. Thank you. And now we will go to our second speaker, Dr. Alex Beard. So Dr. Alex will highlight how critical analysis help us avoid over-reliance on AI and ensures also that decisions remain informed, reflective, and responsible as well. So the perspective is especially relevant when considering issues such as the accuracy of AI generated contents and also the risk of bias in datasets or models. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Dr. Alex, who will guide us through these essential ideas and will talk about the critical thinking. Dr. Alex, the floor is yours.
I just want to check you see my slide okay before I start. All good?
Yes, it's
Fantastic.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the kind intro, and thank you, Stephen, for teeing me up so well on this topic of critical thinking. So a little bit about me. I started life as a teacher many years ago, and I was struck back then by how much schools seemed to be set in the past. I could see my students were living in the future, but I felt the methods I was using in the classroom might have been familiar to Socrates 2,500 years ago back in ancient Greece. And I knew that times were changing. You know, IBM's Deep Blue had already defeated Garry Kasparov at chess. Soon, AlphaGo was going to defeat Lee Sedol at Go. And yet, as a teacher, I believed fundamentally deeply in the power of our human minds. And so what I wanted to know at that stage was what we could do to make the most of our human capabilities in this era of AI. And I set off on this journey around the world to visit schools, classrooms, teachers, experts, technologists, to find out how. And so here we are, today's call. We're going to talk about critical analysis. So this is a key competency today. We need some degree of AI literacy, as we've talked about. Our students need it, how an algorithm works, how a large language model works, where AI is being used in my day-to-day experience to shape what I see and what I understand. But there's a bit more to it than that, even when we get into the pedagogical process. So specifically with this area of critical analysis, we need to learn these two things. One, how to use our new AI and generative AI tools. And secondly, how to evaluate the outputs that are generated by these mysterious, magical new technologies that we have. And as we do that, we fundamentally need our students to improve their thinking, their ability to think with and think about these tools and these outputs. So, you know, in this first one of tool proficiency, when we talk about tools, we're talking about things like, you know, generative AIs like ChatGPT or Grok or Llama that everybody's using now. You know, more than half of all young people are using these tools already in their classrooms, or perhaps things, chatbots like you might see at Khan Academy with Khan Migo, these sort of conversational agents that might help you with their learning. And there we need our students to learn to use these tools, but then also, as Dr. Costin and Stephen was sharing, to begin to customize them, integrate them, use them in more creative ways. Secondly, we need to be able to think very carefully about the outputs that these tools generate. We need to help our students to develop those competencies. So what comes out of these tools we know is often reliable, often very powerful, but can contain hallucinations, bits of disinformation, certainly contains biases of some kind that we need to consider where they came from. Others who are using these tools to generate things in our environment might also be using them for misinformation, disinformation. There certainly is an overwhelming amount of information. And so today we need our students to be able to verify, to assess, to evaluate the outputs that are coming from their machines. And I'm going to talk a bit generally about how we can build the competencies and abilities in our students to think critically in this environment, which is offering so many more tools and so much more information. Ultimately, we need to rely as much on the powers of our own minds as on the tools that are out there. So what do we mean by critical thinking? I'm just going to borrow a definition from the cognitive scientist Dan Willingham, writes a lot about teaching and learning and has been quite influential. He says to think critically, that means having new thoughts and not just repeating what you've learned before. It means, to some degree, being self-directed, making kind of creative decisions, and not only repeating the steps that you've been given to do something. And finally, for it to be critical thinking, he says it should be valuable in some way. It should yield for you some useful conclusions. So how do we teach this alongside our AI tools and outputs today? Well, first of all, I think we need to start with the idea that we still need to teach our students to think. Now, that's actually harder than it sounds. Cognitive scientists show that actually our brains are designed to avoid thinking where they possibly can. And quite often, so are our AI tools. But actually, to learn to think, you still need to have something going on in your head. It's not the case that just because you can Google it, you don't need to know it. And the cognitive sciences now show that in order to be able to do the kind of higher order thinking skills like critical thinking, like creative thinking, you need to have a base of knowledge and understanding in your long-term memory. So that when it comes to thinking critical thoughts in your working memory, on that stage of thought, you can quickly recall concepts and ideas without having to go and look for them. So you can use these new tools well. They do this stuff quite effectively. My talk hopefully is going to be full of some practical examples for teachers. The first one is in Shanghai. There they have a super knowledge-rich curriculum. They're really good at teaching their students to master content. And the way that they do that as educators is through a mastery methodology. In their classes and classrooms, lessons are 30 or 35 minutes in length, and students are given multiple opportunities to learn the same way of doing things. Maybe a bit of repetition, a bit of practice with a partner, some call and response with a teacher, some independent time. And it's a highly stylized, highly structured environment that aims to give students as many opportunities as possible to master the core content. And it works. Shanghai 15-year-olds know a lot of knowledge compared to other 15-year-olds around the world, about 3 years more maths, about a year and a half more science. But actually it holds them back on another factor. All of that knowledge actually is stopping them from doing some of the more higher order skills, the creative thinking, the critical thinking, because they're a bit too focused on practice, memorization, and mastery. I'll come back to that. Now, our AI tools can help us with this. In Silicon Valley, as part of my travels, I met my first robot teacher, but it wasn't an android with a human face like this. Instead, it was a piece of intelligent AI-enabled software inside a personalized learning environment. You can see here a picture of a place called Rocket Ship Schools, which is a network of schools around San Francisco in the Bay Area. And there they have something called the Learning Lab, which you can see here. 5, 6, 7-year-old students spend an hour a day inside this room. And the room is eerily quiet. It's just hundreds of 5 and 6-year-olds in these purple polo shirts with their headphones on, tapping away on keyboards. And they're using maths or reading programs. And these reading programs are intelligent to some degree. And as the students use them, they begin to learn about each individual student and give them just the problem they need or the exercise that they need in order to build their personal needs in reading or in maths. And it works. These rocketeers, they call them, are learning more maths and more English and more reading than other students from a similar background in that area. In general, that's not only because the technology is good, but also because this frees up some time for teachers to work more with parents and to work together in groups to improve their pedagogy and their methodology. So knowledge is key, and our tools can help us. But once we have these outputs and we have this foundational knowledge, how do we learn to evaluate, to reflect on what we're learning and what we're seeing? Well, in Finland, I visited the classroom of this guy, Pekka Peora, who's the country's most famous teacher. And as part of what they do on their high school curriculum there, they have a whole program which is to do with evaluating information sources, evaluating new media in the age of AI. So the students do a piece of work. They all sit, as you can see, in teams. And once they've done that, once they've found the information they're looking for, they are asked to evaluate the output of the LLM or evaluate the source that they found online. And they have a series of steps that they have to go through. The first is to ask themselves as a group, what assumptions or biases might underpin this output? What gaps might there be in the data that we see? Fine. Next, what perspectives might be missing? What voices, arguments, or viewpoints aren't being included here? Thirdly, Does the output align with or challenge existing ideas? Can we use AI to explore alternatives to that? Is the information consistent and accurate? Can we cross-reference that with other sources that we know to be reliable? And finally, how does this iterative process refine your thinking as students or as a student? And this teacher, he feels that it's very important that this work is done collectively and collaboratively, because it's actually, we're very bad as learners, as humans, at understanding our own biases or spotting biases out there. So this sort of social or dialogic form of learning, they think in Finland, is really important in helping to build that resilience against misinformation and helping people to evaluate these outputs. So once you learn to evaluate or reflect, the next layer of critical thinking is learning to use these outputs, use these tools in a creative way. And actually the same thing happened in chess. After Garry Kasparov lost to Deep Blue, this new form of chess emerged called advanced chess. And in that, any team of people could use any number of computers to play in the tournament. And for a long time, until recently, what was interesting about those tournaments was that teams of average players or amateur players using multiple laptops tended to beat grandmasters or tended to be individual supercomputers. And that's because our ability to collaboratively learn to use our tools gives us great abilities in solving problems and achieving goals as human learners. So places that are teaching this in really interesting ways, there's the MIT Media Lab, which is a famous research lab in the US where they invented things like the ink and e-readers and GPS. And there, people come together in these cross-disciplinary teams. So you might have scientists with computer scientists and biologists and theatre directors and educationalists doing research for a few years to invent things. And there they have something called lifelong kindergarten, and they came up with this way of learning called the 4 Ps, the 4 Ps of creative learning in the age of digital technology. So you should have real world projects to work on. You should have a chance to play and explore with your colleagues. You should have a group of peers with whom you can collaborate. And finally, the project should be to some extent like purposeful or like ignite your passion for something in particular. And I think that's a pretty good shorthand for how we should think about learning to use our tools and outputs creatively in this era. But of course, that also applies at the level of schools. And there's another network of schools just across the US called High Tech High, again in California, where kids are learning to creatively use these new technologies to solve real world problems. So in one classroom I saw there was a group of students who were using LLMs to help develop a script for a documentary. Another group of students were building their own drones completely from scratch. And another group doing some biology, making their own biodegradable seed pods. And they were going to spend this term essentially learning how drought was depleting plant species in California, how they could replenish the species that were missing using these seed pods. And they were going to make a film about the whole thing to put on YouTube and raise awareness of environmental issues. And they were very much asking not what the new technology could do for them, but what they could learn to do with it. Now, in order to work collaboratively and critically to use these new technologies, we also, of course, need to be good at considering our own ethics and how we develop those. So a place that does this really well is a program which is now worldwide called Philosophy for Children. Now, rather than relying on simply the kind of outputs that you get from your ChatGPT or your Grok to kind of decide what's right or wrong, you turn to the human society around you, the community of your classroom or your school, to debate some of these ethical issues. What do we think about what this machine has generated? Do we agree with this? What do we think as a group about this particular issue? And Philosophy for Children deliberately uses the school almost as the last remaining space in which ethical deliberation can happen. Our schools and universities are some of the few public spaces that remain for this kind of consideration. And they have, again, a methodology for getting young people to think about ethics as a socially constructed field, which they can then use to judge some of what their LLMs and tools are generating for them. This also depends on levels of emotional intelligence, which are going to be ever more important in this era of AI. A classic program that's doing this is the Ruler program out of Yale, which helps young people and teachers alike to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate their emotions. And by building that sort of emotional vocabulary, kids come into school every day and they practice having ways of talking about how they feel, how they understand the world, how others make them feel. And this helps them to build closer relationships with other humans, to work better, and to create that kind of environment in which those tools can be applied, judged, and evaluated. But perhaps more than anything, I think the final thing for us to consider for our young people today is how they learn to learn, how they learn to adapt. And here I want to take you to a college in France called 42. 42 is interesting. It's a computer science college. All the students there are about 3,000 of them. They all go on to high-paid jobs in the tech sector. The entry requirements require no prior knowledge of coding or technology. There are no fees. And interestingly, the school has no teachers at all. Instead, all of the learning is mediated through this online platform called the intra, like the intranet. You're set tasks by the intra, then you have to solve them. Code this prompt for this LLM, create this website, do this piece of research. And instead of having teaching, you're asked to go and find answers to those questions online. Find a YouTube tutorial, ask one of your friends who might be there on the platform with you. And then the system itself evaluates the projects and your peers are asked to give you an evaluation. Now, what's really exciting, I think, about the 42 model is that young people there are not just learning how to code or learning how to use ChatGPT or learning how to use Grok or a chatbot. They're learning how to learn how to use those things to get a bit better. These technologies throughout our students' lifetime will continue to evolve. They will continue to change year by year. So it's not enough that we teach our students how to use ChatGPT. They need to learn how to use any new technology that they encounter. They need to learn to think critically about any new technology that's put in front of them, to weigh its uses, to understand its biases, to see where it came from, to be able to apply it, use it creatively, use it critically, integrate it in other work streams that they have. And that's what these students are doing here at 42. More than learning to use these tools, they're learning how to use any tool by being forced to be self-reliant, self-starting, and to learn how to go to ask others for help. And I think that is what's most critical in this era of generative AI and other new tools. So my conclusions after my travels around the world were that it won't necessarily, in the era of AI, make sense to put AI at the center of every learning experience. A lot of the things that we need our students to learn, whether they're ethical considerations, emotional intelligence, learning to learn, it will be appropriate to use AI-enabled tools for some parts of that learning process. But for lots of the learning process, we'll still want those to look much like they always had, and maybe even how they looked back in the days of Socrates 2,500 years ago. And in all of that, I thought for a long time, how might it be that AIs will replace the work of teachers? There was a lot of talk of that early on, with these new chatbots. Can we free up some time for teachers? Will we need teachers to be the same? But I'm convinced now that actually the role of the teacher in the age of generative AI is actually more important than it has ever been. As these tools develop and as they threaten our cognitive abilities, there was an interesting MIT study that came out just recently, which showed that students who'd been using ChatGPT to help them write their essays were experiencing a sort of collapse in some of their brain function, some of their memory of what they had written, compared to those who didn't use such tools. In that era, we need our teachers to be the ones that help our students make those judicious choices about when and when not to use these tools in their learning process, so that by the time they graduate school and enter the world of work and society and the politics of the 21st century, they are equipped with the cognitive abilities, the thinking skills that allow them to judge and use those tools effectively.
Thank you, Dr. Alex, for this insightful presentation. I like the point that you mentioned about the emotional intelligence, that some points need to be considered, such as learning to learn and learning to adapt. And I totally agree with you. The most important point is not to teach students how to use ChatGPT or how to use another tool, but how to teach them when to use this tool and when not to use this tool. So, and also to learn any technologies, not only the ChatGPT. So, thank you so much. Here we all agree today that learners have to have the ability to question, the ability to evaluate the AI output to ensure that we don't fall into passive over-reliance on AI, but critical analysis will empower informed and reflective decision making as well. So I have some questions, Dr. Alex, for you. What does this need for improved critical analysis mean for the role of teachers?
Yeah. So I've spent a good 15 years now visiting classrooms that are not my own as a teacher in every part of the world. And the main thing that I ask myself when I go into a classroom is, what evidence do I have here that students are learning something? And I find this a powerful question to ask. It seems very simple, but when you look at those students, how do you know that something is happening in their minds that is like thought? How do you know that they're acquiring knowledge or developing skills? What evidence do I have of that when I see what's happening in the classroom? And I think that the same question will apply, for all teachers in this age of AI. When I set my students a particular task and I decide that it would be appropriate for them to use a new generative AI tool as part of this task, how do I construct the learning experience so that I know they are also doing some of the cognitive work as well? So, rather than simply setting an essay task, which these days you might be able to use a ChatGPT or similar agent to help you with, how do you set a task then that involves a student orally explaining what it is that they did to achieve the conclusions that they did in their essay? How might you ask them live to analyze what another student wrote? How might you ask them to explain the steps that they took to develop that piece of work? So I think all of this is to do with how we get our students to think. There's this term that the psychologist Robert Bjorkman uses called desirable difficulty. There's this idea that, in order to develop our cognitive muscles, we need to do things that feel a little bit hard to us. And often our new tools make things a lot easier. And there is this concept of sort of use it or lose it in thinking, as there is with our sort of physical abilities. So as a teacher, how are we designing those experiences or tasks or learning experiences so that we know that that brain is engaged? And what evidence do we have as educators that the students in our classroom are engaging their brains in the way that we want? Like, those would be the things I would be thinking about as a teacher now.
Amazing. So I agree with you that the shift toward critical analysis reshapes what is expected from teachers. So what we expected from teachers before is different than what we expected from teachers today with all this tech trend. So teachers move from being transmitters to facilitators of inquiry and also some reflection of students' work. From your opinion, Dr. Alex, where should we use AI tools in the learning process and where should we avoid them? You mentioned before that we have to teach students when to use AI and what's the good points and what is not good to use AI. So if you can elaborate more in this question, please.
You mean for teachers, where we should be using it in our practice? I think that, yeah, it's a good question. So I think that there are lots of uses for AI for teachers, which are already being adopted and save time or improve quality. But often I think they depend on the teacher, as is the case in most cases, already being a somewhat expert teacher, which most teachers will be these days as these tools arrive into the profession. So you have already got a degree of professional knowledge and understanding and ability to be creative, which you can then bring these tools into. Now, if that's your foundation, then I think fantastic to use ChatGPT to create lesson plans or schemes of work or units of work, or to create ideas for lessons, because you can then judge as a professional with experience, whether those fit the bill. You have a certain degree of expertise with which to make those choices. There are some other places as well where I think it will save teacher time, like with the case of rocket ship schools. If you have your students for an hour a day, in front of some kind of program that's helping to do that. You remember as a student when you do, like, you practice your times tables, or you do some grammar exercises. Those are the kinds of activities for which you don't really need a teacher to be there, like giving those to you or marking them, because it's pretty simple routine type stuff. So if your students can be doing that for an hour, while you as a teacher maybe intervene with some students that have fallen behind, you use that time to collaborate with other teachers to improve your practice. That feels to me like a good, appropriate and effective use of AI in your classroom. Similarly, I've seen some brilliant tools for assessment. Like the biggest thing I spent my time doing as an English teacher was marking essays. Hundreds and hundreds of pages of student work with many different mistakes. There are some really interesting tools now which can do a lot of that work for teachers. Now, it's important to keep the teacher in the loop. You don't want your AI agent to do all the things, send all the stuff, send all the feedback to the students without you as a teacher ever getting in there. It's important for you as a teacher to know what your students' strengths and weaknesses are. But there are some great programs now like No More Marking, where you as a teacher make comparative judgments, and AI can generate a summary of your students' mistakes overall, give you a sense of which are the best essays in a pile, kind of prepares you to give that feedback to the students in a more efficient and effective way. And saving teacher time, I think, without bypassing the teacher thinking, is a really good use for some of these materials.
Thank you, Dr. Alex. And I agree with you. I used one of AI tools to help me in designing some strategies in active learning. And it helped me a lot, save my time. And I did a lot of strategies, new strategies. And then I add also my touch to adapt these strategies in my course. So it was really, really brilliant. So thank you, Dr. Alex. On behalf of everyone here, I would like to thank our distinguished speaker for sharing such valuable insights and brilliant presentation. So thank you again. Now we will go to the last speaker. Okay, we will hear directly from one of our students about his experience with artificial intelligence in learning. As we all know, AI tools such as generative AI tools, adaptive learning platforms, AI-powered tutors are transforming education by making it more personalized, more interactive, and more flexible. Today, our student speaker will share how these tools have influenced his learning journey, whether by helping them understand difficult concepts, or learn faster, or take more control over his own progress. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Naif Al-Johani, who will talk about how AI supports his learning journey. Mr. Naif, the floor is yours.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Is my screen shown now?
Yes, it is shown.
Yes, it's clear.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, first of all, thank you all for having me. Thank you, Dr. Stephen, Dr. Alex, and Dr. Labia for the incredible presentations. I'm not here to add anything more to what's already been said. I mean, you guys have the better experience and you've already shared everything that should be known. I'm here more to talk about my own learning journey and how I've been able to use AI in my education as a student. So I'm Naif Al-Johani. I'm a computer engineering student currently at the University of Tabuk. Over the past couple of years, I've been privileged enough to represent my country in multiple global competitions and win global awards. And also alongside that, I've been honored to be one of the Kaus Academy graduate alumni from the AI summer program, which is a very intensive 8-week internship program that took us through a lot of different areas and fields in AI. And that was basically my starting point with AI, and had no prior experience at all to it. And since then, I've been adapting a lot of AI tools and different methods in my own learning journey. And, you know, in everyday or daily uses of AI, I've been able to implement it as much as possible, more of a tool to help me with my learning journey and, you know, and how I can get along with my day and get tasks done quicker. So, you know, one of the things that I've used it with is obviously studying. I'm someone who really enjoys and likes to study alone. So I'm not more of a group student. And, you know, I find it easier for me to just, you know, chat with different LLMs. So I use one of them as it's called Trisay, and basically it just gives me opportunity to speak and interact with the LLM and give it all my PDFs and chapters, and it will explain it. And, you know, sometimes I might have some silly questions that I don't want to ask in front of people, so I'll just go back to it and ask, and, you know, get more of an understanding of how the subject I'm learning. And with coding as well, I mean, to break down the code or even explain it to me or help me to debug some errors that I get. And as I've mentioned, I participate in a lot of competitions, and they normally tend to only be 2 or 3 days. So you don't have a lot of time to, you know, fix the errors yourself or read it line by line in the code. So having LLMs or things like Claude or Cursor or, you know, even ChatGPT to help you out with where the errors has been very, very helpful to me. And, you know, alongside my studies, I also have a startup. So I do tend to work a lot with teams and work a lot with different clients and people in different fields. So I just found it very, very great, very good to use tools like Zapier, which is an automation tool, and integrate AI into it and help it with, you know, getting tasks through to my team and, you know, communicate with them and, you know, check where we've been and get updates and even communicate and reply to emails in different areas of our work that we do. And I've been recently into research and, you know, just into writing my first paper. And with no prior experience, it's been very helpful to have, you know, deep search, you know, to search up for citations, reports, statistics, numbers, and to just see what's already been done before. So, you know, we start from where everyone has left off before and move on forward from there. But alongside all of this, you know, it's very important that as well as using these tools and having them and how easy it is to just get access to them and use them, it's very important that we know how to verify, you know, the outputs that we get. And, you know, with AI, sometimes you might get the answer you want, but it's not always the right answer. And that's something that, you know, goes back to the discussions that's been discussed today about having biases in your AI model or in your answers and so on. And that's why it's very important and critical that we start verifying our answers. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. And for me personally, if we go to just research and papers, it's very important that I always look at the references that I get, and I always ask for references when I'm looking, especially for numbers and statistics, to just make sure that they are from verified websites or government institutes that have actually put out these numbers. Also, cross-model checking, you know, we've got lots of AI models now. We've got GPT, Grok, Claude, Gemini, and, you know, they've all been built differently. And, you know, just checking the same prompt with different models can be very, very great, very helpful in giving us the right results at the end. Source triangulation, which is basically just ensuring that the output you're getting, you can get through 3 different sources. So I know that we all want to save time using AI and, you know, just search up the answer we want and take it. But when it comes to things like writing a paper or giving in a homework or even studying for an exam, then it's very important that the information we're getting is actually aligned with what you've been learning or what's actually already out there and confirmed in the internet. Bias detection, as I've said, you know, sometimes writing the wrong prompt can lead you going down a different route from what you've actually been looking for. So it's very important that we just make sure that the model is not being biased with the answers it's given, checking, asking the same question in different ways. And obviously prompt engineering, which is a very huge field that would take lots of time to speak about, but it's very important that we know how we're asking for things. Sometimes we ask, for example, with my own situation, when I'm asking for basically a solution for my homework, Sometimes I might just give it the homework and wait for the answer, but if I'm not explaining to it what I need exactly, then I might get an answer away from what the teacher might want or the professor might want, and that can lead to me, you know, losing marks on that assessment or report. And you know, not every good output is actually great or reliable for students, so it's very important that we always keep an eye out for how we get the right answers. And even if we thought that it might look as a great answer, then we should always just make sure that our references or our sources are actually verified. I wanted to talk more also about the faculty integration of AI and how they've been using it in my university or my own experience. So obviously with generating quizzes and assignments, I've seen it a lot, and we've been getting lots of quizzes and assignments more than before, because it's just way easier for them to assign these assignments and also mark them. I'm doing my graduation project now, so we've been able to get weekly reports of our progress and what to work on and what not to work on from our professor, and he has 5 groups. So it definitely made life easier for him and for us as well, because we won't have to wait for lots of time or weeks to get feedback on our reports. Critical thinking and verification, and you know, just emphasizing on did the student really use his critical thinking, and they do that basically by bringing us in and discussing with us the results that we've got and how we were searching for it and how we got it. And from more of a personal perspective, I do come from a both my parents are in the education system. So one is a head teacher and my mother is a professor. So I totally understand how helpful that has been for them, because I've seen the amount of time that they've been able to save using AI. And, you know, I've seen the piles of reports and homeworks and exams that they've had, and, you know, doing them one by one. And then now having AI where they can just, you know, scan the last page in the exam, and then they can get all the results quickly. So it definitely saved them a lot of time, and you know, they've had more time to spend with us since then. And I think it's been helpful to both students and faculty members and been very, very efficient. I like to share some of the tools that I've been using myself. So some are to learn AI. So if you're still a beginner and you don't know where to start from, then there are some platforms that are very, very helpful for students to start with. I try to also have the links here. Maybe I can share this with everyone after I finish. I don't know if that's possible, but here are some of the tools that I've been using personally over the last couple of years, especially since I've been into AI, and it's been very helpful for me, and it saved me a lot of time and effort to either understand where AI has been up to, because every day a new thing comes up, and it's really important that we stay up to date with it. And yeah, there isn't a better way to end than with a quote. And, you know, Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, said that AI won't take your job, but the person who uses AI will. And I think it's very important that we understand, as students as well, that no matter how far AI advances, I think we're still really far away from it replacing humans in all of the jobs or most of the jobs. We've got jobs now coming up like vibe coders, and, you know, that still shows that even if you're using AI to code or to replace someone, you still need someone there to actually do that job. And, you know, AI is data at the end of the day. So if there is no data, there is no AI. And that's why having the human or physical person there doing the work is always going to be critical. So you're going to fall behind only if you don't stay up to date with the tools and how to use them, but you won't fall behind if, you don't have to worry about AI replacing us completely. So yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I'll be very happy if anyone wants to get in touch with me through my LinkedIn, X account, or even email to discuss any opportunities or ideas, or just have a chat about AI and what's been happening in the world of AI. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mr. Naif, for sharing your experience. It's amazing. Actually, your reflections highlight that transformative role of AI in shaping personalized and adaptive learning experiences. All what you said support the current discussions about how AI shifts education from, let's say, one-size-fits-all model to a more learner-centered paradigm. So I have one question for you, Mr. Naif. AI now is not just a shortcut, not just a tool, but a partner in encouraging deeper questioning and also independence. You mentioned that AI help you understand difficult concepts more effectively. From your perspective as a student, how do you think a teacher can make sure that you truly understand how to use the AI tool effectively than just finding quicker answers? What would you have expected the teacher to do in order to ensure that?
As we've mentioned, it's very easy for us now to get to the tools and use them. But from my own perspective, even though, it's very easy for us to get to these tools, professors are still using the method with us where we have to come in and discuss and present some of the work we do and actually go through how we've been able to, get to these results that we've got to. And at the end of the day, we will get examined. So even if you get away with using AI without understanding it, an exam is there to do that job and actually verify if you've understood fully what you've been learning or getting to. And it's been mentioned before by Dr. Alex that, AI is going to be available for everyone, even outside of uni. So it's more about how you've been able to use it rather than what was the quickest way you got to the answer with it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Naif. This is really an excellent point. So I agree with you. And also, I believe practical small tasks and follow-up questions are powerful ways for teachers to make sure students are not using the tool and they depend on this tool, but also developing their skills and understanding behind it. So there is something called portfolio, is the same as portfolio. And there is now portfolio to save all the prompts that students use, all tools that students use, and also all steps that students did to achieve this task. Thank you, Mr. Naif, again. Thanks to all our distinguished speakers in this webinar today. And now, please, for all audience, if you have any question, write your question in the Q and answer box, and we mostly take the most related question to this webinar. So we are already collected some questions from the dialog box. Hopefully, we will collect more questions for the next 10 minutes, inshallah, before closing. I have here a question from the audience for Dr. Alex. Dr. Alex, there is a question. Is dependence on AI ethical? What does not make human brain dependent on computers? Sometimes it gives wrong answers. So how we solve this problem if our students become independent on AI? Will they trust us if we say answer are wrong?
Yeah, this is a big question. I remember even 15 years ago, my students finding things on the internet which they held to be truths, inalienable truths, which I couldn't dissuade them of. And I think there is a kind of real risk of students seeing what they find online as being more valid as from what they hear from their teachers. Is it ethical? I think that it is necessary for our students to be prepared to use these AI tools. And I think that they come with real risks for our cognition. I think we're all used to this idea of living in societies that make us sort of lazy physically. We drive cars around, we eat bad food because it's available to us. But I think more and more we might live in societies that risk diminishing our cognitive powers as we go along. If it's very easy to find what you're looking for, if you get an answer from a large language model that's kind of good enough to kind of keep you going through your day and you don't question it, like all of these things, like if you use Google Maps to get around, we all now know that we can sort of see a slight reduction in the human hippocampus, which is the area of the brain that's used for navigation, because we're all using our maps to get around and don't remember the routes anymore. All of these things are risk, diminishing some of our cognitive powers. When it comes to the question whether it's ethical, I think the question I would put back is what you lose in a certain transaction worth what you gain by being able to use that tool really well? And if you go way, way back in human history, there's a really interesting case of this, which is the invention of writing. When writing was invented 10,000 years ago, plenty of people, this is Socrates reported talking about this in the work of Plato. It's like, oh, if we adopt this new technology of reading and writing, then what's going to happen to human memory? Before that, people remembered huge epics. They remembered the whole history of a society. They told stories orally. Writing, suddenly, we could put stuff down on paper. We could remember it through the generations. We could have access to a lot more knowledge that could be stored in a single human head. So was it ethical for us to adopt reading and writing? Well, now, 10,000 years later, we'd say, yeah, that's a no-brainer. It's given us so much. So I think in that kind of ethical dimension, is what you get worth what you give up? And I think, with generative AI, the question of where that boundary falls is still a little bit up for debate. Like most of us are probably of a generation of where we've done a lot of our education already. We've acquired a bunch of knowledge. We know some stuff. We have some experience. We have some expertise. When we start using a tool like ChatGPT, we at least have some ability to evaluate where that sits compared to the knowledge we already know, what we read in the newspaper. And even we find that hard to do. Professional lawyers, where there are hallucinations in AI using these cases in court and they're not bothering to check. So it's not a complete way of defending ourselves. But our students, whose brains are developing over the first years, decades of their existence, I think that's where we have to be very, very cautious and thoughtful about how we deploy some of these tools in an education setting. But I certainly think there are ethical ways of using these tools in the education process. And I think it's probably necessary that we expose our children and our students to them in a sort of controlled pedagogical environment, so they at least learn to think about how to use them critically whilst they're in a setting with teachers, elders, tutors, professors, and so on, to help them make those judgments.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alex. Thank you. I totally agree with you. And thank you for this really brilliant insights. I have one question for Dr. Stephen. The question is, with the rapid rise of AI, how can we ensure that core cognitive skills like critical thinking and adaptability remain central in education and in work as well?
I don't think you can use AI effectively without having those skills. So I think you'll get immediate feedback when you use AI poorly, because it's not going to serve your ends. So there's a loop that exists outside of the cognitive amplifier loop, a loop that has to do with broader social, personal goals, where if you're not using critical and creative thinking, which I think they're two fundamental cognitive skills that are needed at every one of those junctures in the cognitive amplifier loop, if you're not using them well, you're garbage in, garbage out. You're not going to get good stuff coming back.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. So the output is always depends on the input. So if we have good output, that means we have a good input, and vice versa. Thank you, Dr. Stephen. We have also one question, and it was in Arabic, but I translated into English. How can we balance the students' the increasing use of AI in learning with teachers' worries about their future role? If you want Dr. Stephen to answer this question.
Actually, I'd like to hear what Dr. Alex has to say, since he was a teacher.
Yeah. Dr. Alex?
Gosh, I mean, I think that, like I was saying before, I think the role of the teacher almost becomes more important in the era of AI. I'm having really thought about this, having explored all over the world, I'm very distrustful of those who feel that AI will sort of replace teachers in some way through chat agents or chatbots. Not because that technology can't be very powerful and very useful, but because most of the evidence suggests that it's only a handful, 5 or 10% of students that have the self-motivation and the sufficiently high levels of prior learning to use those kinds of tools effectively and in a sustained way. Most of us, like I was saying, most of us want to avoid this hard work of learning if we possibly can. And one of the main reasons for having a teacher or a group of peers or people to do that learning with is that it helps to motivate you, give you that sense of purpose, that sense of accountability to other people. And I've not seen anything that yet suggests to me that technology alone can do that. Whether it's Duolingo or it's like, can we make learning like Angry Birds? Like that works for some people and maybe makes it a bit more engaging for some students. But in general, I think that you're always going to need good humans in the loop. Stephen, I see you want to say something and I can't wait to hear what it is.
I want to build on that. So my company builds educational programs all over the world, actually. And what we've been doing lately is hybrid designs, where it's something we call dynamic asynchronous. That is, you get the content from an AI, interaction with an AI. We use something called a RAG, retrieval augmented generation, where we've got a vector database which has the sources we want the AI to use in doing a tutorial. So it way cuts down on hallucinations and so on. But that just conveys content. We need a hybrid situation where we also have real-time interactions with other humans. And in particular, we've been using what's called the jigsaw design to do projects where they have to use what they got from the AI. The way we set it up is there are 4 students in a project. The project is divided into 4 parts. This is Elliot Aronson's idea from the early 70s, by the way, a jigsaw classroom. So we divide the project into 4 parts. Each student is in charge of a separate part. 50% of their grade, 50%, half, is based on how well they do their part by themselves. The other 50% is based on how the whole fits together. So they have to interact with each other to make sure what they're doing is plug compatible, is in fact going to fit with what the other students are doing. Moreover, before they start the project, we remind them there's going to be a blind anonymous poll afterwards where they rate the other 3 students' contribution. And if any student gets a rating consistently under 25%, they're zeroed out. They don't get credit for it. So in other words, we set up the incentives so that they'll work together to get something that's more than the sum of its parts, and they know they can't be a free rider. They can't let the others do the job for them. So we combine that kind of a synchronous with other humans and a faculty member guiding, helping make sure the thing is working right, with the dynamic async, where the AI is doing a tutorial to convey information to them, which they then are going to use in the active learning project.
Amazing, Dr. Steven. Thank you so much. And I think we ran out of time. So we can conclude here. Thank you all, our distinguished speaker, Dr. Steven, Dr. Alex, and Mr. Naif Al-Juhani. Thank you all for your insights, presentations, rich presentations, and discussions. Today, we explored design evaluation, frameworks, competencies, and everything. And I encourage all the audience to check the National E-Learning Center website to explore more publications about AI in education. Thank you once again for being part of this important webinar. Mr. Zaid?
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So long.
The unfolding conversation and the exchange of ideas during today's session have powerfully demonstrated the transformative potential inherent in shared knowledge and active engagement. We are profoundly appreciative of your presence, which significantly enriched the dynamic nature of our discussions. It is our sincere hope that the insights and perspectives delivered throughout the session provided substantial value and deepened the understanding for each participant. Our gratitude extends to Dr. Rabia Al-Buainin, whose moderation skills navigated us through this webinar discussion and to our esteemed panelists whose expertise significantly enriched our dialogue. Equally, the active participation of every attendee has been integral to the success of this discussion. As we conclude, our focus shifts toward continuous improvement and growth. A survey link has been made available in the chat section, and we cordially invite you to share your feedback and suggestions. This input is crucial as we endeavor to elevate our content and ensure future sessions are even more impactful. On behalf of the National E-Learning Center, I'm Zaid Raqib. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.